Hi, Dominic.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. Can't complain.
Yeah. How did you go home for break? How was your break?
Yeah, it was good. I got to go home for 10 days, so it's nice to see some friends and family, be home for the holidays, you know?
Oh, good. Are you excited to be back?
Yeah, of course.
Back into the swing of
Great to be
things?
back.
Yeah? Back in good old Northern Ireland. So before we dive head on into this mentoring session, I want to get to know a little bit more about your coaching context, who you're coaching, where you're coaching, all that fun stuff. And then we'll talk about your presentation. I just want to see how you think it went on empowerment and kind of what inspired you to do that. And then to finish off the session, we'll start to brainstorm like a progression plan, areas that you would like to improve on for future presentations and stuff like that. Sound like a fun, good session?
I don't know.
Okay.
Nah, sounds good.
Sounds good? Okay, awesome. So tell me about your coaching context. Who you're coaching, where you're coaching, what you're coaching.
So, right now, at the moment, we're just really doing like probably between 8 and 12-year-olds at Hollywood Golf Club on Sundays. That's kind of the big thing, and then we're doing a little bit of mentoring, so we're still doing some older people with e-hoops, and then just got into some of the Special Olympics teams doing a basketball team. So
Oh, wow.
yeah, that just started, so excited for that.
Definitely, yeah.
So a little bit of all over the place.
A little bit of everything.
The main focus is coaching golf at Hollywood.
Coaching at Hollywood. Very cool. And you enjoy it?
Yeah, cool.
And you've been doing it the whole time since you've been in Northern Ireland?
That's been the one constant thing every Sunday.
Oh, good.
So yeah, it's starting to build good relationships with the kids, and definitely some of the kids that we actually stay later, you get to see them extra times during the week.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, you kind of have some more than others that you build a good relationship with, and kind of you can feel like you can make more of an impact with because you have a better relationship with them.
Exactly. And how many kids are you coaching?
Depends on the week, but it could be anywhere between there's 2 sessions, so I like to break it up because there's too many ones. So usually it'll be about 20 to 30 in each session, so it'll be anywhere between 10 or 12 kids usually.
Oh, that's a good amount.
Yeah, so it's enough to keep you occupied, and you gotta stay on your toes.
Definitely. So that's really cool though that you're able to spend kind of that extra time with an additional handful of the kids, and like you said, build really good relationships with them.
Yeah, I think that's key, especially at that age. You have to have some level of trust, and they have to feel like kind of just have a human connection with them. If you're a lot of them, it's a new thing, and they want to have confidence and feel like what I'm telling them is right.
Right.
So I think establishing a relationship and trust is really important.
Absolutely, yeah. And to kind of go off of that, so your presentation was on empowerment.
Mm-hmm.
So watching the video, it was a little cut off, so I only got 18 minutes of it. But it started when you...
Great presentation.
I know. I wish I was there in person, but unfortunately I couldn't be. So the video, it started off with you on the 5 key aspects of empowerment. So why did you choose empowerment for your presentation, and did you have anyone that inspired you? You mentioned in your presentation that you worked with a little bit with empowerment in your alma mater at St. Peter's, is that correct?
Yes, so actually I think that the part where I did the case study got cut off, but it was basically basically just me writing about my experience and how empowerment helped our team. That's at a very high level, obviously, but I kind of gave that as an example, and then we talked about what we thought worked and what didn't work as as a collective group, basically. And then from there, I kind of established what I thought were, from my research, what was the 5 most important things.
Oh, okay.
And then from there, we talked about how you could maybe adjust it, because that was obviously a very high level example, but maybe how you could swing it to medium, lower level, and then so on. So it kind of kept building, kind of you just have the building blocks, and it kept going level to level, and kind of putting it all together at the end.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I kind of wish I got that case study, but that's really cool that you practiced empowerment, and that kind of motivated you to give a presentation about it and help other coaches use it kind of in their coaching. But so was it your coach that?
Oh yeah, sorry,
started?
the answer.
No, it's okay. No.
Part of your question.
So was it your coach that kind of introduced you to this empowerment, or was it a team thing, or?
I don't know so much as if it was his intention, he was like, oh, I want to use empowerment, and this would be a great thing to use for the team, so much as it was kind of maybe accidental, or kind of worked out that way, because what he did was he figured out that we need to get 2 shots better each player, because we had a huge gap. The goal at the beginning of the season was always to win max. So
Yeah.
we have this big lofty goal.
What's
and
max?
So it's a conference championship.
Got it. Okay.
Right. So that's like for a smaller division or mid-major school. That's like your Super Bowl. That's
Okay.
everything, right?
All right. Just so I have
So
a better understanding.
Sorry, should explain a little more. So that's that's like your big lofty goals at the start of the season, and then season starts and the season's not going very well, and it seems like the gap's getting bigger and bigger and bigger every week. And then the goal is up here, and now you feel like you're down here, and you only have one more season. The fall season's done,
Mm-hmm.
and we were horrible. We finished 7th out of 9 schools.
Oh wow.
And yeah, we only beat like 1 or 2 schools in the MAC.
Wow.
So, and then it was kind of like, how do you get the team change their mindset?
Right.
And how can you really, get people to start believing that this goal is still possible?
Mm-hmm.
Because when you take, 2 shots per player, usually golf tournament works, you have 5 players play, and then the 4 best scores each round count.
Okay.
And it's over 3 days, right? So there's 3 separate rounds. So if you have 4 scores each day, it's 8 shots each day.
Right.
Each round, right? Times 3 is 24 shots.
Wow.
That's a huge difference, right?
Yeah.
So if I went to you and said you need to be 24 shots better, then that was the best team, right? That was the number 1 team. I think it was Siena. Was number 1 Siena or Fairfield were 1 or 2? It was something like that. But so they were 24 shots better on average than us.
So you guys were chasing them.
Right. So that seems like a huge
yeah,
thing. That's like
seems pretty substantial.
how are we gonna get 24 shots better over the winter and then into the spring leading to max? But if you break it down and say, they each round, so we're 8 shots worse each round, and then times divided by 4, so 2 shots a player. That seems pretty manageable, right?
I think so. Yeah.
Right. So then you take your coach. Your coach tells you, "I'm not going to tell you what you need to do. You need to take control of the situation and tell me how you're going to fix the problem."
Oh.
So each player, he posed a question basically. So he didn't tell anyone, "Oh, this is what he didn't come in and say you guys suck." Well, he kind of did, but a little bit. But he didn't come in and say this is you guys are horrible. We're gonna go run 800 more miles, or we're gonna do so much more cardio or workouts, or we're gonna practice for 5 more hours every day. He said simply, this is the way. This is where it is. This is where we need to be.
Mm-hmm.
And in order to get to where we need to be, you all need to be 2 shots better. So you tell me how you're gonna do that.
Wow.
Right. So it's actually pretty clever the way it worked out.
Super
right?
clever.
So not only is he helping the player development, he's also helping the team development. So then the reason why it was so effective too, I think, is because the empowerment. People weren't just showing up to practice. Well, first of all, so the goals seemed obtainable now.
Right.
Now you're focusing on the things you can control.
Absolutely.
And things that are in your power, which is actually one of the second definitions of empowerment.
Mm-hmm.
It was, it's like basically giving the feeling of confidence and self-control and basically things being your own destiny, right?
Yeah.
So that covers the first part. And then the second part is people weren't just showing up to practice. They were actually taking control of their development, and they knew, especially in golf, you keep track of all your stats, and you know what you need to do to get better.
Right.
Someone doesn't, coach doesn't need to tell you that you need to do this, and that. You know what you need to do. And the players were responding well to it, and they were going to practice and actually practicing for the full hour. They wanted to be there, and they held themselves accountable because they had their goals.
Mm-hmm.
And it changes the whole culture of the team.
Yeah, most definitely.
And he also hung up all the goals on the wall, right? So every single day when you walk into practice, you see that's my goal, and then our team goal was above it, 2 shots better player, and then we also had another goal, which was instead of being the hardest team in the MAC, or the number 1 team in the MAC, it was being the hardest working team.
Hardest working team.
That goal wasn't really measurable. Well, I also forgot to tell you, it had to be time. What was it? It had to be time basically measurable. So you had to be able to check it. It had to be time, in a certain time frame. So by max, and then it had to be realistic. So you couldn't say like, oh, I want to go shoot 60 every round.
Right.
It had to be things that are obtainable. So, but those 3 things, then you wrote down exactly how you're gonna do each one, how you're gonna check it, how you're gonna fix it if it didn't work.
Wow.
And then you go from there. So once the season started, it was kind of more like once the season started, you could check it. So like,
absolutely, yeah.
The example I used in the case study was I wanted to improve my wedge play. So odd days I did 30, 50, 70, 90 yards. Even days I did 20, 40, 60, 80. Did that. I don't remember how many balls I did, but that's what I did. Kept track of my wedge stats, and then if it wasn't working, all right, maybe I need to work on odd numbers more.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I need to change the way I'm doing just different things. So if it's not working, I can go back and say, all right, well, this failed, but maybe I'm getting better. Maybe I'm not as good as I want to be, or maybe this is great, so I'm going to keep doing this.
Wow.
and then kind of have like team discussions on it. We kind of had like checkups. Coach had checkups with our goals,
right,
and see how they were going, and just because you don't have that mindset. Instead of worrying about I need to be the best team, or like what is the other team doing, how are they better than us, you're just worried about yourself, and you're worrying about that goal, and achieving that goal, and then the rest kind of takes care of itself.
Yeah. Wow, that's really cool, and I liked how you were able to tie all of that into your presentation on empowerment. So because you had such a positive coach, it sounds like, in your undergrad, and he had this unintentional, we'll call it, method of coaching that kind of inspired you, not only to share your experience with other coaches, but have you been able to use any forms of empowerment, either directly or indirectly, with the kids that you coach currently?
Yeah, so actually one of the things we talked in the presentation was with Brendan, since he kind of wanted to know, or kind of some ideas of how you can use it for younger kids.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of talked about, it doesn't have to be something so much as that, where it's it's kind of like a concrete thing. It's really high level. I want you to plan out basically your whole training schedule.
Yeah.
That's not going to work with younger kids or maybe lower motivated people. But what you can do is you can take that same concept of using a question to help further development, right? So you could say, it could be as simple as maybe you have young kids and you finish at the end of the session, your training session, you say, what was the goal today? Or what do we take out of today's session? Just challenge them with a question.
Really good.
Right? So then that way they're taking ownership, they're further understanding what it was really about.
Yeah.
Right? So that's a really simple way you could do it. Or instead maybe challenge them if they're, if you have a good training session, ask them what game do you want to do, or just anything like that, to have them have ownership into what they're doing, so they feel more a part of it, and they kind of makes them feel like they're part of their development, really.
Absolutely, yeah. So even though you have a plan with using that empowerment, and that they might not see it as that, which is awesome, because if you have little kids, you don't need to tell them straight up like, oh, you know what, I'm going to empower you today with this and this. But your discussion with Brendan in your presentation, not just with Brendan, but everyone in your class, it seems as though you had a lot of really good thought-provoking questions and scenarios. So kind of to talk about your presentation a little bit, what were 2 or 3 key aspects that you felt you delivered strongly, and strengths basically of your presentation? How do you think?
That's a good question. I think the structure of my presentation went really well. I think I talked about with Robin basically before. We had a really good discussion, which is actually why I got switched from Tandy to Robin. But we had a really good discussion, and kind of like he gave me some feedback, and I actually talked to Luke. He gave me a good idea of the case scenarios.
Oh, okay. That's
so, that was his idea actually. So I've tied in perfectly with what I wanted to do.
Brainstorm.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it was good, but I think just really well. I had a good flow, so I kind of I said, this is what I'm gonna do. Then I gave a definition, so it's kind of. Oh, actually, I asked people what empowered means to them, so you kind of have like a.
Okay.
So I think that was good to draw the people in, and you kind of have like a basis. So what do people know? What do people not know? And then just kind of, as I said before, you just keep building your presentation together, and then bring it together at the end. So then you do the case study, ask them what they thought, then you show them the definitions.
Yeah.
And then do scenarios, so they're solving it, and then tell them the 5 steps of how they can do it.
Yeah.
And at the end, the risks, because it is a pretty risky thing. But I also think I was really comfortable doing it.
You looked really comfortable doing it.
I've been fortunate enough that from internships and in school, I had to do a presentation. Every single business class, every single economics class, I had to basically defend my thesis in my paper. So I don't know. It was just a really relaxed environment too.
Yeah, absolutely.
As opposed to I had to deliver presentations that were very intimidating in front of a lot of high up people, and not necessarily people that are wanting to see me do poorly, but there's a lot of pressure.
Absolutely.
Whereas that was, I know everyone wants to see me do well. I had a good audience.
Right. Yeah.
I didn't feel like I had to prove myself to anyone. You know what I mean? So it was just felt really comfortable when I was doing it.
Yeah, and it looked really natural. Like, you looked really natural, and again, that I appreciated you telling me a little bit about your alma mater and how empowerment was enacted there, because that gives me a much better understanding of why I bet you that you are a really relaxed presenter to begin with, but it did look really natural, and you obviously did your research, and I think it increased the credibility of your presentation too, because even the amount of engagement that the audience members brought, if you're a little bit less relaxed, or if more intense or whatnot, they probably wouldn't have thought that you were a credible source with empowerment.
Oh,
So.
trust me, in the beginning, I was a little different, but
Really?
it was actually really good. I had one of my professors in college, my business professor. He was he was one of the VPs at AT&T.
Oh wow.
And he's retired now, and he just kind of does it for fun, pretty much. Like he just enjoys giving back, and he does a lot of like the higher up classes or
Yeah.
like I don't want to say like elite, but more advanced classes basically
Like the
for
upper
business.
level,
Yeah.
yeah.
He teaches like the more difficult classes, and every single class you have with him, he makes you do a presentation in front of the class.
Oh wow.
So he makes you do one, and then he critiques you. He's pretty harsh guy. You don't get to that high level of business without being a pretty strict person and sticking to what he knows. But it was good because he gives you feedback. So the first one I did was horrible. But you get better, and then you get his feedback. And I actually had a big kind of like a internship class with him, working at Goldman Sachs. So I learned so much doing presentations with him.
Oh, I can imagine.
Just like verbiage, how you present the flow, transitions, everything. My other internship, I had to give presentations every week to my bosses.
Oh wow.
And other senior people. So I don't know, you just kind of figure out what works for you. But I think what you said there is so true. Your body language and how you present yourself to the people is so important.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
If you come across nervous, or it gives you lacks credibility, or you come off, you don't speak well. I don't know, you have to speak. I don't know. It's just how you present yourself. I think is almost like 50% of how people perceive you is almost more important than what you're actually saying.
Yeah, perception I think is key, especially in that situation and that context that you're giving. So you think the structure of it was really good, kind of, I guess your projection and your clarification and the overall delivery, I guess you would say too.
Yeah, I think
it was super strong. Again, you look super natural and makes sense if you past experience with your internships and whatnot. That'll do it.
Yeah, I think it's just kind of, I had a good idea in my mind after talking with Robin. We had a good structure, and it was kind of like, so you had to have I had the basis down of what you need to do.
Yeah.
And it was filling in doing the research, filling in the blanks of what so I had in mind the structure, and then just putting the information in, and then it's just a matter of practicing and getting comfortable with the information.
Awesome. Well, it was very well delivered.
Thank you.
So with those couple of positives, are there anything from your presentation that you wish to improve on, or you feel that you're still kind of struggling with, or anything that could help us, perhaps make a progression plan moving forward?
I think I ran a tad bit short, so I think that's something I always seem to struggle with. For whatever reason, I always seem to run it a little bit short, so maybe I could expand more. I think maybe the 5 points I could have expanded a little more on, and maybe I don't know. Whenever I always finish to use Tanny and Robin's favorite thing, reflection, I did reflect on a little bit, and I think I could have tied in more. Maybe the 5 points, maybe going back to the case study and saying, well, how do you think the coach used this example from the case study? So talk about it, right? One of the examples, one of the 5 points was basically showing a growth path. So I could go back and say, so from the case study, how do you think the coach used this example of, or this section of empowerment in the case study? And then you could talk about it. So that could have added easily another 3 or 4 minutes. And I think it could have added, just further reinforce what I was talking about, so maybe get the point home more. I think it could add a lot of value to the presentation. Now,
even though your discussion and your questions were really good, and you had, I think at the end it was like 8 minutes of class discussion, which is awesome. Do you think if you did expand on that, those 5 points, that it could have added more depth to the presentation, and it kind of, like, because we were talking about perception earlier, do you think that would have changed how the audience perceived the presentation? Do you think it would have been more effective, or?
I think it's kind of trial and error a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
I wasn't too far under, so then you run the risk of, well, maybe I put that in and I take away from class discussion. I have to cut people short.
Yeah.
So maybe I only do it for 1 or 2.
Yeah.
Instead of doing all 5, maybe pick 2 that I think are really good points that were highlighted really well in the case study, and do that.
Absolutely, yeah.
So.
So moving forward, for another presentation, how do you think that you could implement that a little bit better, so that way you are closer to that time limit that whether it's put on by your professors or just your comfort level for you?
I think that was the first time I've ever done a workshop
for
sports coaching.
All right.
So actually, that was the first time I've ever done one where I wasn't just relaying information or giving a personal. Well, it was kind of personal, but
it was more
was
about
kinda
getting.
yeah, it was kind of like teaching people something.
Okay. Yep.
Specifically, like all the other things before, were kind of like, I guess, I don't know. It was more of business setting things, right? So this was more of like sports
Gotcha.
and kind of like trying to teach someone something
Right.
instead of doing like a quarterly review or report or something like that. So I think some of that's just experience.
Mhm.
Next time I do a workshop or I'm trying to teach someone, like I think Sean Paul was great. Like he knew exactly what he was doing. He got up there, he knew this time I'm doing this,
Mhm.
and it was so fluid. Like if he had to cut someone off, he had to go to the next point. He did it in like in a good way where it was still people still felt like they're being involved and didn't have to worry about him cutting off.
Getting cut.
Him
Yeah.
off. Or, like just the way he gave his presentation was perfect. Like you could tell he knew what he was doing. He's done it a million times.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna do this, and this, and I check all the boxes off and get people involved, everything. So I think some of it was just experience.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And by the end of your internship, like you said, you're probably so proficient at giving, whether it was quarterly reports or whatever it may have been.
Exactly.
Yeah,
The first few presentations. I mean, the first presentation I did, my boss told me it was awful. You have to do better. And then you just kind of, but it is what it is, and you get a feel for it, and you get better.
Oh, absolutely.
By the end, you got it down. I'm gonna do 1, 2, 3. This is the information I need to do for it.
Mm-hmm.
This is how I'm gonna present it, and it gets easier.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's like just experience.
Yeah.
Do 3 or 4 more of them, I think.
It would be solid.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because you have that natural projection and that natural body language about yourself. But you actually brought up a really good point about Sean Paul and how he was able to not interject the audience when they were going over, but he was kind of able to, gauge time and.
Yeah.
Do you feel like that was one of your strong points, or do you feel like that was something that you could work on? Because when looking at your presentation, you did have a good balance, I thought, of audience engagement, while also it was your own words and you really relaying information. But do you feel as though there were some times where the audience got a little too involved and it kind of hindered what you were trying to say? What are your thoughts on that?
Not really, because I think I kind of had certain areas where I planned in that I was going to do, what's it called? Drawing a blank here. Going to have participation, like I planned for it.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't really, I don't know if I planned like I'm going to have, you can't really plan to say I'm going to have an extra minute for this discussion.
Right.
Like this. So kind of like I had it in place, but it wasn't, I feel like it's kind of hard to plan that.
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
I don't know, but I think I could have. Maybe there was like some points where it went along, but I do remember some of the points people weren't actually. I thought they would pick up on it more, and there'd be more discussion, and there wasn't. So I kind of asked them more thought-provoking questions. I remember Sean Paul was saying, "I like this. I know this relates to one of the Shane Long. He was saying how he was struggling a lot, and how the coach, how he kind of maybe used empowerment, and then I kind of asked him, well, how do you think you would do it if you were the coach? Just to keep him going?
Yeah, I remember.
Because I remember looking down. I was looking down the clock and I was thinking, well, this is a little short of where I should be.
Right.
So I was just kind of seeing if I could get even more out of him, or
Yeah.
maybe he'll say something and then Brandon will think of something, or Luke will think of something.
Yeah.
So.
But that's good that you're able to gauge that.
Yeah. So I think maybe, I don't know. I didn't really have to cut people off. I kind of was trying to. I think in that presentation I was trying to get more out of people.
Okay.
But if it was different, maybe I don't know if I'd be able to cut people off. Maybe that'd be something I have to work on.
Yeah, I think that can be super challenging in a presentation, especially like you said. This is your first workshop, if you will, kind of teaching something. Is kind of just gauging the audience, how they're gonna perceive things. In one of your examples, you talk about how you could have a player who was. If the coach would just be telling the person everything instead of showing them, and that might that might indicate to the coach that the coach needs to try another form of coaching. Like if they're not for correctly responding to anything, then maybe the coach should demonstrate versus just telling them. So going on to anything else, did you have any questions or anything that you wanted to, any forms of improvement or any?
I don't know, did you think there's anything that I could improve on from watching?
again, I think that you have natural body language and that you have that natural presenter.
Definitely, it was
if you will.
it was over time. It wasn't in the beginning, but it's just practice.
Experience, yeah. How do you think that when looking at, because I didn't see anyone else in your class, I just saw your presentation. How do you think that your movement was? Do you think that, were you comfortable in the spot that you were, or did you find yourself moving about a lot and kind of
just stood at the podium the whole time, but maybe that could be something to look into. Walk around a little bit more, get a little more. I don't know. I could use walking around as draw attention. I know one of the things we talked about a lot was when you want to draw attention to yourself or to emphasize a point, you kind of take a breath and you stop. Because if you're talking and you just any sentence I'm saying, so at this point, and then you take a breath, it kind of like people actually listen.
Right.
So we talked about that. So maybe that could be something you could use if I really want to emphasize a point. Stand at the podium, maybe just walk to the other side.
Mm-hmm.
People will follow you, kind of listen a little bit more. So maybe that could be something I could look into.
Oh, absolutely. I was curious about that because some people are very, not fidgety, but they do enjoy walking about. But for you, again, you looked very comfortable and natural. And then
that could definitely be something you can use to your advantage to
I mean, it also
heighten your presentation.
Right. I think you did a very good job too, keeping the audience in mind. There was, in your scenarios, you kept in mind the sports that your audience coach, obviously. So what was it? You had soccer or football? Basketball, golf.
Basketball, golf, another football. That was basketball. Camogie, is that what it's called?
Oh,
It's like the women's version of not Gaelic curling.
Oh, okay.
I think it's called camogie.
Okay.
Which I learned that was interesting.
Yeah,
Thanks Michelle for that.
Really interesting.
Yeah, didn't know that was what it was called.
I'm learning that too
That was
now.
all we had.
But yeah, what oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
But yeah, I was unfortunate the fact that I could make my situations around because I already knew the audience.
Right. Which is good. You obviously did your research before, prior, and having class with them probably helped a lot too because you're able to kind of build that relationship. But yeah, did anything else?
That's about it.
Oh, good. Well, I'm happy that we could have this discussion. Again, your presentation skills are up to par. Kind of throwing in a golf pun there. It's okay. Don't laugh too hard. But no, I think that you did a really good job, and I know we didn't get to write down a progression plan, but it seems as though you're kind of more of a mental guy, and you like taking mental note of things.
No, definitely. I think good idea of some things we talked about. Appreciate things.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Tom.